Hello, everybody, and welcome to the long-awaited debate, debate of all ages, where we finally discuss which franchise is superior. Everybody, I'd like to introduce Mr. Al from Dark Side Reviews. Say hello, Al, to everybody.
How is everybody? Looking forward to it, man. It's been a long time coming. I got your address just in case you make me super mad. So
No, sir, I'll be sure not to do that at all. But you know what? For those who don't know, I've met Al in person a few times, one time actually, and I had a Snyder review. I think I've told this story plenty of times, but I'm gonna tell it again. But I had a Snyder Justice League Snyder screening back in October, I believe, or late September, and I invited some fellow YouTubers out to share the experience because again, it was a great movie, and I want to see it on the big screen. So I sent an invite to Al. He showed up, and Sean, and Al shows up to my DC event wearing a Marvel shirt. I was like, okay, it's on. It's on now, sir. I get it. I get it. But I love how you're passionate about it, and we both love the franchises, and your knowledge of the films is in depth. And I'm like, you know what? Who better to actually have a sit down and just discuss why we love these franchises and share our opinions on which is better than Mr. Al himself.
well, man, happy to be here. Excited to get into it, man. And I actually have some questions for you if we have time for it. That I
Oh
should
yeah.
I should have sent you, but don't worry, they're not stingers, so they won't be too out of left field.
No, okay. I love shoot from the hip, man. Just send them over to me. And just to let everybody know who's watching, we'll get to your comments, throughout the discussion. But to set the rules as far as what I guess describes or what is defined by DCU and MCU. DCU, I am including all DC movies, and the only reason I am doing that is I said to Al earlier this week is because Keaton is now in the films. So that means they're going to go and pull all the movies back in the back catalog into the new films, which I am a little iffy about right now, especially with the whole multiverse thing coming being popular. So I am including all films, all DC films in this discussion. So just to kind of preface that for everybody. But before we get started, I just want to kind of understand, like, I'll just kind of introduce yourself and your love for the MCU to everybody. What introduced you? Like, when did you first get introduced to the MCU? Was it comics when you were a kid or movies? How did your love
Yeah.
start with
Yeah,
that?
exactly. So it was comics, man. I mean, ever since a kid, I've always loved comics because I've always been that kid that's found kind of like escapism in
Mhm.
comics, so to speak. So you have these heroes with these powers, and you want to be like them. You wish you were them. So that's what always drew me into it. Just kind of this incredible world outside of my own,
Mhm.
where seemingly normal people can do all of these amazing things. So it's really from comics. That's kind of like the start of it, and then branching out to some of the cartoons and things like that, and then we get to the movies that we have today and all that kind of good stuff. So
Okay. So you're about my age. So did you grow up with Super Friends and those cartoons?
absolutely, it's so funny, man, because even now when you hear people talk about or say things like Justice League, I automatically think to myself, "Oh, you mean the Super Friends?"
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, yeah, yep.
And for me, again, it's kind of like my childhood as well. I remember growing up, we only had one TV, so I didn't watch a lot of TV. But my dad would go to the half price bookstore. I don't know if you know if you have those in your area, and
Mhm.
he'd bring back a stack of comics, and they were DC and Marvel. And I remember my first comics I read were Fantastic Four, Captain America, and Daredevil and Superman. And I love both. I mean, growing up, even in the 90s, I loved both franchises. At the time, DC was making the blockbuster Hollywood films, but Marvel had the low budget ones,
Mhm.
and I still loved them up until Blade. When Blade came out, I loved Blade. But I loved both, and just I think we're both fortunate. All of us who are watching, you and I think we're living in a very wonderful time where we get to see our childhood heroes, as you said, in multi-million dollar films, and just seeing or the stories we read as kids on the big screen. So I think we're both very lucky for that.
Yeah, man, it's amazing because when you think about the stuff that you used to see on page and where we are today, and how literally with CGI you can create almost any experience. When you think about, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, like when you think about that amazing scene with the Flash in oh man, my mind froze, but in the Snyder cut, or you think about what we saw in Endgame it to me, that's what's so exciting, that literally we are in this place, right, where we can have these powerful visuals that we never had before, and
Never.
it's almost limitless.
Yep.
So yeah.
Oh, sorry. Let me just hit the mute over here real quick. So, all right, I'm on YouTube. Just want to be sure everything's working. Okay. So now that we've kind of shared why we love our films and all that, let's talk about specifically. You have the first question here, sir. So the first question is, why do you love the MCU itself?
Man, that's a big question. So
Mhm.
I think I think what I love about the MCU is how they have constructed the superhero landscape. And I like kind of how they built it from a grounded level, starting with Cap and then building out, and now how we really are. And I was going to say a cosmic level, but even beyond that now, right, with the multiverse. So
Yeah.
I love the structure of how they're setting up the MCU. And I feel like with how they built it out, it's almost limitless in terms of what we can get. And even with the character builds, even with going from like street level, and I consider almost all of the Avengers except for Thor and some of the others, they're all street level.
Hmm.
So from there to building out to characters like, like Captain Marvel, or Thor would be an example, and more those kind of more powerful galactic characters. For me, that Rudy,
Hmm.
that gets me excited, because I feel like we you can almost bring in anyone right now. Like I've been putting in a big push for them to bring in Blue Marvel, but I feel like the sky's the limit. So I love how they built that out,
Hmm.
and now I feel like the stuff that would have just been impossible from what I had as a kid is now possible, and they've structured the universe. I'm sorry, man, you got me going.
No, keep
So
going. Keep going. Go ahead. Take all the time you
um,
want.
they've structured the universe for us to be able to do almost anything. So now being able to see all of that come into a live action adaptation is just like, it's mind blowing. That's why I personally think, because some people have said that they think that superhero movies have a limited shelf life,
Mhm.
because structurally they tend to be the same. But I don't really see them that much differently from action movies, and we've had them for a very long time.
Mhm.
If the setup is good, man, I see a whole bunch of mileage with what we can do coming forward, and that's actually on both sides for DC and Marvel. So
Absolutely. And I kind of get your point because like films kind of have like a genre that we can kind of go back to like the 50s and 60s where cowboy films were, the thing for so long, and it kind of ran its course when it came to the films and then shows. And every era has a genre. In the 80s had like the action films, as you mentioned. So, what, to me, I guess this is kind of a separate question from what we're talking about, but do you think, your opinion, do you think comic book films are running their course, or like we're on the last leg, or like do you think we're at the very like uh cusp of like a whole new branch of new films and new stories?
so I kind of feel like we're on the cusp, because I feel like now with what we're seeing, and this is even with DC2, I think that we're seeing better storytelling.
Yes.
And I think as storytelling evolves, then I think the comic genre can go on. We're not just kind of seeing the what I would classify some of the movies as spectacle movies,
Hmm.
in the sense that, you're watching the movie, but you don't really care much about the character development or other things. You just want to see Superman, do his thing, or you want to see Spidey do his thing. But all the surrounding story was not that important, because I feel like we were all enamored with the spectacle.
Right.
But now, because stories are becoming more important, that I think still has us at the cusp, because we can start to tell stories with more weight. And I think about some of the things, like I'll give you an example, like Daredevil. I
Hmm.
felt like, and on Netflix, was great to see, but the power of that story was engaging. I feel the same way about Superman and Lois, which is amazing.
Yes. Yes, it is.
So yeah.
Okay. For me, I thought they ran their course because, and I'll kind of save a little bit about that later on in our discussion.
Okay.
But I'm glad that we're seeing new ideas. I love the idea of like James Gunn, what he did with Peacemaker. I didn't give two craps about John Cena in that particular film, but I did love Suicide Squad, what he did when that came out earlier last year. But just to kind of bring in that adult humor and that comedy, but also have like like a comic book level threat to the world and bring it out on a series. I loved it. I can't wait to see season two. So I gave up hope actually. So I'm kind of interested now. It's the Peacemaker has sprung up my interest again, and
Yeah.
especially Lois and Superman.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I completely agree. I feel like what we're getting now is kind of the best of both worlds. And we're seeing that you can have success in a show, and Peacemaker is a good example of that, breaking away from what a lot of people, and you and I have kind of discussed this before, breaking away of what a lot of people would consider formulaic superhero shows.
Yes,
So,
exactly. And I'll get more into that later.
okay.
But real quick, I just want to address a couple comments here. Sage says, "Do the animated movies count?" No, we're just talking the Hollywood films for this particular debate. Although the animated films I do love, I don't think I've seen any Marvel ones. I have a lot of DC ones back there.
The Marvel
DC,
ones,
go ahead.
the Marvel ones are look. Who said that, Rudy?
Who said that? Sage Yellow. Who said that?
So Sage, I think the DC animated movies are I mean they're almost so good it's just not even fair. Like they're amazing. The Marvel ones, mm, I'm not even gonna lie, man.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of a lot of them, but I love the DC animated works, especially Justice League Dark. Man, I hope we get a lot of
Oh, I love
adaptation
that
of
one.
Justice League Dark.
I have
So
that one, dude. I was like, what? It's like a rated R like anime in a way. Like, what's going on with this violence?
yeah, it's crazy.
I love it.
It's so good. It's so good.
All right, so now it's my turn here. I get to kind of just high level. Why do I love the MCU? And I spelled I. Why do I love IMCU? Sounds like a doctor's office, but I meant DCU. For me, it's what I grew up with. Like I said, I grew up and kind of go back in time here to the 80s. I grew up with a Adam West Batman. It was very campy and very silly. And then around my puberty years, Michael Keaton and Tim Burton show up, and now we have a gothic dark Batman that's violent. Like, what? This is pretty cool. I love it. And it hit me at the right moment. And that's the kind of tone of films that I prefer. And I just discovered this film, this right here, and I have a few. I just discovered The Dark Knight. This is in the late 80s. And this is what kind of I kind of saw myself growing up. Like we had the campy Batman, now it's adult now. And this is kind of what set the tone for me for like all films. And then Batman Return showed up. It was really dark. It was actually too dark that they actually changed the whole concept of Batman to fun, campy films in Batman Forever with Val Kilmer.
Mhm.
But that's what I loved. I loved The Crow. I love Blade. Blade, in my opinion, they should bring Wesley Snipes back for Blade, have him involved because the guy still looks good. And in my opinion, if it wasn't for him, people forget about him. But if it wasn't for him in that movie, I don't think we'd have comic book movies the way they are today. So there's a lot of credit that needs to be given there. But what I love about DC is that I feel like I'm watching a graphic novel, especially how violent they are. Like Joker, I
Mhm.
felt like it was an adult film dealing with adult issues and topics that I know Disney wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. And
Right.
I know a lot of adults and anybody can relate to the Joker when it comes to sympathy of the character, what he's going through with the rich and all those other undertones. Uh, I love that. I love how the Snyder cut was rated R. I love that there was violence, and I love like when there is an existential crisis on humanity and the world's about to end. I love how they take it seriously.
Mhm.
They're not talking about eating shawarma or like, there's flying robots all over the place. I don't know what's going on. We're floating on a city and I got a bow and arrow. Nothing makes sense. Like, dude, the
Yeah.
world's about to
Yeah.
end. So I love how it takes these crises seriously and the world reacts to these gods that have arrived on earth. Now, I know that may not jive with a lot of people. I understand the market for comic book films is Marvel, Disney. They own it. They are the creme de la creme. They own it. They own the marketplace like Apple. They own it, period. So introducing a different type of storytelling, I know is not going to gel with the masses, but they feel like films. There's cinematography in these films. I can't name one Marvel film, for the exception of the Eternals, that felt like a film.
Mhm.
If you like Eternals, good or bad, whatever your opinion is on it, it felt like a film with adult content. There was a sex scene involved. Like, hey, I like this. It was a little slow in the movie, but I actually loved the Eternals for what it was. And that's why I love DC films, is because they take risks. They're not scared or when Warner Brothers doesn't have their head up their ass and in getting involved in ruining films with
Uh-huh.
executives, when they allow filmmakers to make a film, these films are nominated for Best Picture in some cases. And I just love that they're taking risks and you don't know what's going to be coming with each film. And I think that, and I'll talk about that later, but that's what I love about it. I don't know what to expect. The Joker was so controversial before it even was released. I remember seeing a Good Morning America story like, hey, be careful. There's some terrorist acts threats because of the Joker. Like, really? The Joker's origin story is causing this much of an uproar within the world, our nation? Come on. It's just an origin story. And I love how with Batman right now, with Matt Reeves, that's coming out next week, which I can't wait to see. I love how everyone's excited about it because it's a different Batman. Yeah, we're all frustrated with all the casting and all that, but I love how it's dark and it feels like a graphic novel. And I love that I don't know what to expect in this film. And I think that's something that Marvel has taken away from me at times. But that is why I love the DCU, man. It's adult content, adult situations that are handled the way I think superheroes would react. And not just making jokes about let's go play Galaga on Fury ship, or I got that reference. You know, jokes,
Yeah.
crises like that can't be treated like a joke. And that's
Yeah.
why I love the DCU.
I can see that, and I feel like even with a lot of the characters you mentioned, and actually on both sides of the coin, like we owe Frank Miller a big a big tip of gratitude because he really did, like, for Batman, in my opinion, Frank Miller really reset Batman with how he wrote him as the Dark Knight. And there may be some folks that I don't know about that did that before, but and Frank did the same thing with Daredevil. So
Yes. Yes.
so we owe, we owe him um a debt of gratitude for really kind of restructuring what I would consider those characters for a more adult audience.
Hmm.
Um, and let me know, Rudy, because I don't want to jump the gun here, but it's interesting with your take on what you like about DC, because I feel like DC has two sides of the fandom. So they have the side that's talking about what you talked about, liking kind of the more consequential, the darker side, the more realistic side, for the lack of a better word, of what's going on with superheroes on screen. And
Right.
then you have the other side that is kind of stuck in the 1950s, where superheroes were campy. There wasn't a whole bunch of consequence, and we can get more into this in a while, but they were always able to kind of save the day. Superman was able to save the girl across the planet and the sinking ship. Somehow he just made it work.
Yeah.
um
Hmm.
so incidentally, well, I'll say that. I think that you have, I think it's always interesting when I hear both sides of the fandom, um who like it either way or the other. But I do think, and maybe we'll get to this more later, I think that that's DC's dilemma. I think that part of what the problem that DC has is its origins didn't start out there that way, and some people like that. They don't want
Yes.
to see the change. So,
Real quick, there's a comment here for some guy. Who's this guy here?
oh man,
Who's this dude?
I
They
told
both.
I told I told you, if this guy popped up on the screen, I can't stay. I gotta go.
How do I block this guy? I don't know what's going on. But some of the comments here, real quick, I'll just if you go ahead. What do you think about this question, Al? What about Captain America: The First Avenger? You go first.
So here's the thing, man. Like, I mean, for the most part, what I've heard about Captain America: First Avenger is people like it. I loved it.
I loved it too.
I thought I thought for an origin movie, it was awesome. I thought the storytelling was great. I love the transition and the character arc that we get from Steve Rogers to Captain America. I thought it was awesome. I absolutely loved it. It's not my favorite, but I really really liked it.
When I was a kid in fourth grade, I went to the library in my school and I went to the comic book area, and there was a hardback novel of Captain America's origin, like from the comics from the 30s, where it showed him and Bucky, getting killed, and the Red Skull had the Cosmic Cube, is what it was called. It wasn't
Yeah,
called the Tesseract; it was the
that's right.
Cosmic
Not
Cube.
Dan.
Yeah, I read it. So Captain America, I loved, and then I had the issues where Scourge came and killed everybody, and then John Walker took over the Shield.
Yeah,
That's my Captain America. So I did love the first Avenger, and it's funny how I guess the masses tend not to like that one. Winter Soldier is superior, in my opinion, of course, but
Winter Soldier's great.
this is not as terrible as people make it out to be.
Not even close. Like, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought almost from every aspect, I thought it was good. I thought the storytelling, like I said, I thought the cinematography, that was a good movie.
I loved it. I loved it. And here, why do you think Man of Steel is so underrated? It's one of the best DC movies, and I hardly hear anyone mention it as great a DC movie or even a great Superman. I loved it. I don't know if you can see my shirt. I actually sell these on my website. Man of Steel is a masterpiece, and I've sold like 5, so I need to sell more. But I did an in-depth video, Isaac, on why I think it is a masterpiece. So if you go to my channel, I'll put a link after the video's over on why I believe it. I break it down to, everything, and I think why a lot of people hated it is because they expected a Christopher Reeve Superman, but what they were doing here is giving us a different approach. He's not technically Superman yet. He had his powers for a day and had to fight Zod and do the best he could. That's why everyone died. And I think that was one of the main complaints is that everybody, well, he's not Superman. He didn't save everybody, but he isn't Superman yet. That's why it's not named Man of Steel. That's why it's named Man of Steel, and that's why it's not named Superman. But that's a whole other video. So go ahead and check that out when you get a chance.
Yeah, and I like Man of Steel as well. It wasn't great. It was good though. So I did like
I loved it. I loved it. Now, Al, back to you. What do you dislike the most about the DCU?
Jeez.
You can curse if you like. I'm just kidding. If you want.
I don't know. I guess I think one of the things that bothers me most about the DCU is kind of what I feel like is a lack of cohesion when you bring them together. When you bring the team together, or when you bring the Justice League together. I think their standalone films are actually pretty good, but when you bring them together, I feel like there's a lack of cohesion, and I feel like there is a I'm not sure even how to put this, but I feel like there's a lack of synergy. They don't feel as connected
Mhm.
um, as a group as the Avengers, and I don't know, for example, if that is because of how Marvel set things up in the beginning, giving us those individual stories and then bringing them all together. So that's part of my problem too, and part of my problem again is I think structurally they made a mistake. I think that if they weren't going to make the type of films that Marvel made in terms of tone, I think they at least should have followed the structure, because we should have definitely gotten the standalone movies first.
Yeah.
And I'm always a fan of that kind of structure, because then you don't have to build in time in that film to establish a character. We already know the character, and we might already even like the character, so that even makes it even better when we bring them all together. So that's kind of my issue there.
Okay. Okay. That's a good one. And I remember that being the main complaint after Man of Steel. I was thinking we're going to get either a Man of Steel 2 or a Batman solo film. And then we had 3 of them: Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman in one film as Dawn of Justice. I'm like, oh, that's a little too much, but okay. But for those who are watching, it's pretty obvious. I'm a Zack Snyder fan. I love 300. I think Watchmen is completely underrated. It's one of the best comic book movies out there. And I think
Watchmen's very good.
that's when I fell in love with him. He took like a novel, and of course, the true fans of the novel will dismiss it and say it's not the Watchmen. But taking that much material, a book that thick, and just making it into a 3-hour movie, it's a great film. And when I found out all 3 characters are going to be in one film instead of the origin pieces, I'm like, okay, well, if he gets 3 hours or something, I think he can do it. So I remember that being a problem, that being a discussion. But I feel they did rush it, and of course, the executives at Warner Brothers are complete idiots for interfering. The Justice League is, and again, another example where that we saw what they produced in 2017, and then we get the Snyder cut, and it's just world renowned from everybody. So
I
that
mean,
the
that
marketing sucks. Yeah,
I'm sure this is no mystery to anyone. Like, they definitely need a point man. Like, DC definitely needs a point man that's running the
they do.
show. Too many cooks in the kitchen.
They do. All right, let's see here. Let's go ahead and just get a couple comments here. Hot takes for nerds. I personally have a huge problem with Man of Steel. I need to get you on my podcast. We can do a huge discussion. Absolutely. Yeah. I've studied that film. I obviously love Superman. I have a bunch of Superman tattoos on my arm. I have a whole sleeve. I grew up with Christopher Reeve. I love it. I absolutely love it. So I'll be down for that. Now for me, and I may go a little long here, but what do I dislike the most about the DCU? I actually have a list.
Oh Lord.
So I actually have a list because let me go ahead and get started here. Well, first off, before I get into the dislikes, just let everybody know I have every MCU film back there, for the exception of Captain Marvel. I took my kids to see Iron Man 2 when they were old enough. They're little babies, but they were old enough to go to the movies with me. So I took my kids to see every Marvel film up until Endgame. And I'll never forget that. My kids are growing up. I'm taking them to see the stories that I grew up reading on the big screen. These are moments I'll take to my grave. We all got teary eyed at the end of Endgame. That's how much they meant to me. Okay. But after seeing them again, this is my problem with the MCU films is that they're too safe. They're just way too safe. When you have shows like Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead, the early years where you didn't know what was going to happen and who was going to die, or the stakes are out there and the writers are just being carefree about who lives and who dies. And then you see safe films, there's some sort of disconnect with me. I never feel, and this is going to sound silly, I never feel that it's real, if that makes any sense. When you go to a film and you're so enamored with it, you totally forget about your surroundings, you forget you're in a theater and you just see a film. On rewatches, a lot of these films just feel generic and just like carbon copies of each other. And I remember when I walked out of Ultron, I remember lying to myself saying, yeah, I loved it. It was great. But it wasn't. I hated Ultron because the template and the cadence and everything was the same. And I just remember anytime there was like some sort of heavy human emotional scene or stakes involved, they were just joking around all the time. And I get it. It's funny in the theater. It's hilarious. But if you on rewatches, I'm like, yeah, that didn't age well. I don't know. It just wasn't. The humor and the formula that you mentioned earlier, it was becoming more obvious to me. And after Doctor Strange, I just gave up. They're throwing a pop culture reference. You'll get the crowd laughing, have a heavy emotional weight moment and throwing a joke right in afterwards. I mean, they never let emotions linger like the Joker or DC films. Like, let it hold for a little while because these are humans, right? It's a product for the masses. It's going to make a product to have everybody and make everybody happy. And it's going to be a product where you can bring your kids and your kids are going to feel they're going to be safe. You never have to worry that the Disney's going to put something violent in front of the kids' faces. It's a safe product, and that takes a little bit out of the experience for me. Every experience, even the trailers are the same. Nothing feels different. Like, I challenge anybody to name the director of Doctor Strange or the director of Ant-Man. I don't think anybody can because they're just so similar. It's like a turnstile of films. And granted, each of these films are fun. They all made $1 billion, but they just don't feel like they feel like shows in a way. There's a disconnect for me there. And that's all I have for right now until further notice. But that's what I dislike about the DCU. It's just too safe. It really is. And like I said, until that formula changes, until they throw something else out there for me to catch my eye, I'm disinterested. And we've talked about this before in another conversations out. I love Daredevil. Like I said, I grew up with it. I love the show Daredevil. And if Disney ever changes their structure, I don't know if they own Daredevil at this point, but if they made adult content with some of these characters that, you know, their content itself is adult, if they started making more products that way for me, I would be happy. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, Disney, you'll get my $8 back a month, and I will go to subscribe to Disney Plus and see these shows. But that's what I want. I want like Peacemaker shows. I want adult content. I don't want it just all safe and for the kids and everybody. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can see that. I mean, there definitely is a structure and a format to MCU movies, and I would agree with you and say that they're not very risky. I mean, you can kind of see what's coming down the pike. Well, it'll be interesting to see if the structure of that changes, but I think not because I feel like they probably are living with the whole notion of if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so yeah, and but I think when I think about that, I think that is DC. I think it's a smart move because I think it's an effective play to DC's audience.
Mhm.
I mean to you know what I mean, Marvel's audience.
I get it.
So I hear what you're saying about not liking the structure, but I think that they have a pattern that works. And I don't know. We'll see what risk taking comes. And honestly, I'll just be honest with you. Like it doesn't look like it's structured for there to be even much risk taking in the future. And it
Yeah,
looks like you might get a bailout card with the multiverse too,
yeah.
um, because you can do a lot of stuff or you can reverse a lot of stuff in the multiverse. Even though I like the move of the multiverse because I feel like it opens DC up to bring in more characters. But
Mhm.
um, no, I mean, I get that. And it's funny because the comic relief to me that's kind of one of the things that I enjoy about it. I enjoy the fact that it feels epic, and to me it feels consequential, but it doesn't feel dire, and I kind of like that. I kind of like that aspect of it.
Okay.
So which is interesting though, because you do bring up a good point. When you think about shows like Daredevil, and I don't think none of us thought that Daredevil was gonna die in the show, but it did have weight. It did feel consequential.
Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
and it was really adult in its execution. Um, and I kind of felt the same way about Punisher. Like I loved Punisher, and Disney will never do Punisher. Never. You can't. Like you can't. You can't put Punisher in Disney's hands just because of the nature of that character. It's impossible.
But doesn't that break
Um,
your heart a little bit that knowing that we'll never get a true Punisher like we had on Netflix from Disney?
uh not at this point. And the reason for that is I am still I'm still kind of enjoying the rollout of what's happening with Marvel and hoping that we see things that I'm looking forward to that don't have to have those elements in them for me to enjoy them. Like I'm really hoping that someday we get Secret Wars. That's what I really
Oh,
want.
yes.
And I'm talking about I think it's the 84 version, because I think Secret Wars had a reboot, but I think it's the 84 version, like the version where we get how the symbiote actually got to Earth, and
Yes.
how Venom actually got to Earth.
Mhm.
So I'm still looking forward to all of those stories. So I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay. I forgot one point about why I dislike the MCU. I have it right here. I just remembered. Um, it relies too much on nostalgia and callbacks, and that's one thing that infuriated me with the Spider-Man films. I only have Homecoming back there. I haven't. Of course, I'll buy No Way Home. But one thing that infuriated me with every Spider-Man film, especially let's talk No Way Home because everyone just recently saw that, is that every moment they had a chance to mention Tony Stark, they did. And it's like enough of Tony damn Stark, man. He's dead. Let Spidey have his own damn film. I was so frustrated that they had to just remind us Tony Stark died. You remember Tony Stark's over here. There was a poster. Like enough. We know he's dead. Enough of that shit. I'm done. Just let Spidey have his own film. So in nostalgia, of course, everybody loved. I loved No Way Home. I had a great time with it. I saw it once. I had a great time with it. But again, when it comes to the humor you mentioned that you love, and again, just so everybody's watching, if you love the MCU, I'm not. That's great. That's your thing. I just have Al here to talk out why we love the films for what they are. So I'm not trying to convince you to start loving DC. If you hate it, continue to hate it. I'm just telling you why I love it so much. And as far as the jokes, for me, when I was able to time the joke like a jump scare in hard, that's when I knew I was done with it. Like, and here's the joke, and then we got it. So it's like I'm done with it. So when I can call the timing, I was like, forget it. But
Yeah.
that's another thing. Like I said, I just want to mention was the callbacks and nostalgia. It relies too much on that. Tony Stark was here, remember? Like, stop. Then they put a Tony Stark's arc reactor on Doc Ock or something like that. I'm like, geez, come on. I was so mad. Like, enough.
Yeah. I'm not sure about this, but I do feel like a lot of those references are set up for what we might get in the future. So that's just my thought about this, and I think that because historically we've seen that, right? Like in a lot of Marvel movies, we saw it in Cap's movie when we really weren't sure who they were talking about, but there was a reference to, I think it may have been Civil War. There was a reference to Doctor Strange, like on the rooftop. He said something about that strange fellow or something like that.
Yeah.
So I
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm speculating that we keep hearing things over and over. It could be a setup for things to come. I don't know.
And real quick, this is one of the most amazing graphic novels of all time, The Age of Ultron. And it's so violent and it's so damn cool. I've read this countless times. And I actually thought, I remember before Age of Ultron came out, I thought this is what we were going to get. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait. And you can imagine my disappointment leaving the theater thinking I was going to get this. And we got what we got. I was so upset, man. So I think that's when my love for the MCU film started dwindling. Like, damn it.
Yeah, no, I bet you were important. You were disappointed. Like some of the stuff you see on the page. If
Yes.
if folks were looking for that, then I don't know what to tell you. So
All right, Al. So let's go here. So, what do you appreciate the most about the DCU?
So I really actually appreciate the heroes in the DCU,
Mhm.
because one thing I'll say And I'll say this, unapologetically, even as a Marvel guy, DC by far still has the most iconic heroes that we've ever had. And I'm not going to try and act like that's not true.
Mhm.
So when you think about Superman, when you think about Wonder Woman, Batman, especially Batman. And the reason I say that, and maybe we'll get into this later, because I feel like Batman is every normal person superhero. And I think that's why people love Batman so much, because when you look at Batman in relationship to other heroes like Superman, you could be Batman because Batman is what an apex human could be. So you
Mhm.
could really see yourself doing that. So um, I think that they have the most iconic heroes. That's what I love, and that's what I love about Superman. You have this being that's almost limitless in power, but it's so nice because he shows restraint. So I feel like even with characters like Superman, it's you can imagine yourself kind of donning that role if you're any type of person, especially if you're a person that's more reserved or more introverted,
Mhm.
because you kind of see that
Yes.
that dual side of him and Clark.
Well put.
So I think in terms of characters, they have the most iconic characters. Period. I
Mhm.
mean, I so that's one thing I love about them, and that's one thing that kind of frustrates me about the build out of the DCEU. And I made videos about this to say it's not like they don't have the goods, so to speak.
Right.
So it really is the characters that I love, but it's the core characters. When we start to drift to some of the other characters, and then Marvel is guilty of this as well. Like I'm like, oh come on, man, like fall off arm boy or something like that. What is happening here? So anyway, but
Mhm.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. For me, what do I appreciate the most about the MCU is they're doing it right. They're doing everything absolutely right. Everything they're doing is a home run. I remember when they started telling individual stories. Like, of course, we had Iron Man. I think the next one was the Hulk. Then Captain America. I'm like, oh my god, they're actually doing like a limited series. Like, you remember those 12-issue limited series where each one had like a
yeah,
story? I'm
yeah,
like, they're actually doing that formula, the old comic formula, and they're moving it into the movies. That's so cool. Uh, the stories are fun. They're for all ages. Like I said, I took my kids when they were babies, and we grew up on. I took them. They grew up on those films. They saw the heroes in action, and I don't know how they did it, but Kevin Feige and his group, the fact that they from the very beginning cohesively told a great story. Even the most minuscule characters had like an arc or had something to do at the
right,
very end of Endgame. Everybody participated in the Endgame finale where all the portals are opening. I think that's epically one of the greatest moments I have in cinematic history for me and for everybody, for us to all go on that 10-year journey and to see it perfectly just no there's some plot holes, but I mean, for it to come together emotionally the way it did
yeah,
was beautiful.
yeah,
They
yeah,
did it 100% right, and the casting's amazing, and they're giving the fans what they want. And this is coming from a disgruntled old bastard who wants Justice League 2. That's all I want. Just give me Justice League 2. They're giving the fans what they want, and they're listening to you, the fans. And I got it. My hat comes off to Disney and everybody involved because they're giving you what you want. They're giving you great stories, and they're casting some of the best actors out there, and they're telling fun stories for all ages. And I think that's a formula and a franchise that so many people have tried to mimic. DC fumbled the ball with their executives, just fumbling with feedback. I think Universal tried their Munster, their Dark Universe, and it
yeah,
failed epically. There's so
yeah.
many people trying to copy what they're doing, and no one can replicate it. That's how good they are. So that's what I appreciate about the MCU is that they're just doing it right on every single level.
I do think, yeah, what's interesting, Rudy. Maybe we'll get into this. It really is kind of like a changing of position, because you remember like back in the day where DC was untouchable, where like when Bats and Superman come out, and Marvel was like scratching for inches just to even be
Yep.
close to where DC was.
Hmm.
So it's interesting to kind of see the turn, and those two have been going back and forth forever. And I'm sorry, I might be getting off track here, Rudy,
It's fine.
but
It's fine.
so it's interesting too, like when you talk about character comparisons, because I'll be the first one to admit it, and folks are going to get mad at me for if they're Moon Knight fans, because people say, well, Moon Knight is not is not really a replication of Batman. Absolutely, he is. Absolutely. And this is not just me talking, like you can read about it and
Yeah.
see. So, but I'm saying all that to say it's interesting how just all along the way those two companies have tried to one up each other, and they've shared artists and writers across the companies too. So it's really fascinating to kind of see the switch.
Yeah, and you remember growing up in the 80s, like if you wanted to see like a made for TV or like your superheroes on the regular television, I think NBC had like the movie of the week with the Hulk meeting Thor.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, that's all we had back then. And it was like
yeah,
we appreciated, we loved every minute of it. That was so
yeah.
cool.
Yep, yep.
And I hear people like I remember complaining. I remember like when any film comes out, I mean, people like complain, oh, the editing and the screenplay was horrible. I'm like, dude, we grew up with made for TV movies as
Right,
a kid. You're complaining about editing? Like, shut
right.
up. Oh God, let's see here. My man Al, Superman, and Batman, Wonder Woman are so iconic. Agree, the best heroes of these. Yeah, they are. I mean, they are. They started it all. I mean,
Hmm.
it's kind of tough to follow that. Let's see. Agree, Rudy. MCU is doing amazing with their structure and move. Yeah, they are. They absolutely are. I mean, again, I mean, it's not for me. I didn't see Shang Tsung in the Ten Rings. I didn't see that. I think I said that wrong. I didn't see Black Widow. I went and saw Spider Man, and I had a great time with that. So okay, and I have to address this because he's a friend of mine. My shirt is not a lie. You shut up. All right, so I want to get to epic moments. Now this is subjective, of course, like everything we're saying here. But what is I told Al come up with three. Like, what are your most epic moments in comic book films? I just wanted to kind of hear from you, sir. You can pick both MCU alone only, but what were some of the epic moments for you?
No, what it wouldn't be MCU only. Probably, I guess my three most epic would be the scene in Endgame. You know,
Mhm.
I that scene still gives me chills when Cap looks like he's going down and you hear that muffled on your left, and I'm just like, oh man,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
it's um Ezra Miller's scene in the Snyder cut. I
yes,
That was amazing, man. I mean, I that was just so good for the visual feat of
yes,
what it was. I mean, I'm almost like speechless.
mhm,
It was that was everything that you'd hope that you would see with the Flash, like accessing the Speed Force and then actually reversing time. I mean, just every part of that was so good. I mean,
yes,
really, like I remember watching it when we were down in Texas and just thinking, "This is crazy! I can't believe how good this is." So I
yeah,
definitely that scene, but emotional scene would be Richard Donner's Superman. I think I told you this.
mm.
Um, the scene where he decides to save Lois, and
Oh,
he flies backwards around the Earth, and it's so funny because people always become scientists after that. Well, technically with the physics of it, it's not. I'm like, what? What? Come on, y'all. No, I mean, I love that scene because I think the emotional delivery that Christopher Reeves gives to that scene is to me the most powerful I've seen, and this is even across anything I've seen in the MCU too. The fact that he decides to save Lois,
mhm,
um, and there's been debates as to whether or not that had actual consequences with other people. So
yeah,
I'm not. I mean, we can talk about that if you want, but that's not necessarily my point. But even how he delivers that scene. So when you think about it, Rudy, like once he does that, and once he reverses things, and he's standing behind the car, and she sees him, you can see he's not even delivering dialogue, but you can see the giddiness in him. He's just
yes,
like he's so excited to have her back,
mhm,
um and then just that whole ordeal, kind of the anguish of whether or not he should do it, and Jarrell is telling him it's forbidden for you to interfere in human history. Then he hears the voice of his father. That even now, man, what
you
is
get
that thing,
hyped
like
up.
30 years old? Like I'm getting
Maybe.
I'm getting misty eyed right now just thinking about it.
I
So
actually have that film right there, that poster. That's my Superman 77 poster right there.
yeah. Yep. So
Absolutely.
I love it to this day, and even cinematically to this day, despite they didn't have what we have now in terms of what we can do with CGI and all that kind of good stuff. But I even to this day it holds up. It's an
Absolutely.
amazing scene. Amazing scene.
It is, and those are great picks. Real quick, I just want to address the super chat here. General Grievous, thank you so much for the $2. Super chats are definitely appreciated, everybody. Thank you. If you want to
Awesome.
contribute some more, go right ahead. But animated content, DC any day, live action Marvel wins. Let me read that again. Animated content, DC any day. Okay, I get what he's saying. Yeah, DC for the animated series, they're just knocking it out of the park.
Absolutely.
Justice League War is one of my favorites, and Justice League Dark is really good. Of course, Batman: The Long Halloween and The Dark Knight Returns, those are all phenomenal. So I can agree with that. And
Yeah.
thank you for the super chat. Going back to the most epic moments here. Oh God, I know I said three. Now I want to name more, but for me, there's a scene because Superman is everything. My hero. I grew up watching Christopher Reeve, so he is my everything. And when he died, I was in tears in the '90s when he died. But there's a scene, in my opinion, where he's at the Fortress of Solitude and he's talking to his father. And just this scene alone of Marlon Brando in that hollow, image, and he's just talking to his dad because this is in the Donner, the Super Edition cut. And I saw this in the theater in the year 2000, where he's talking about his father, how good it felt saving people. And he said, "You're revealed to the world now, Kello." And he goes, just that conversation for me is iconic. Other is Thor arriving in Wakanda. That's like a
Oh
goosebumps
yeah.
iconic scene right there. Of course,
Yeah.
that's a perfect timing. So I got to hand it to the Russo brothers, I believe, with the screenplay, just to kind of stretch that tension and then the battle going on. And Thor 2 arrived at the perfect time was awesome. The end game portal mentioned the portal scene at the end of Endgame. My number not to portal. I had a number two. Let me go back a little bit. My number three for epic moments is in Batman v Superman, where it's the very beginning and Bruce Wayne's running down the street as his building's collapsing and the smoke's coming at him. I think out of all the Batman films that I can think of, for Zack Snyder and everybody to capture Bruce being Bruce, but also Batman being a hero, but not in the cape and running toward the fire, running toward the building collapsing, that gives me goosebumps every single time. And I think that's not talked about enough. It's just it's such a cool human moment
Yeah.
for Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And for me, the most iconic, really, oh my God, of all this is, of course, you already mentioned the Flash scene in the Zack Snyder's Justice League. For those who don't know, let me tell a story. Last year, Sean Chandler invited me to go see the screening at his house. And I was like, you got it? You got it already? Like, oh my God, I'll be there. I drove to his house like in hours. He lives like a couple of hours away from me. And I go, have you seen it? And he was like, yeah. It was pretty cool not to give anything away. And I'm like, what about Flash? Did they have him push that truck again? He's like, dude, I'm not going to say anything. Just wait to the scene. And when that scene happened, I stood up off his chair and I just had my hands behind my head and I teared up. I was so emotionally vested. It was so beautiful as you touch the music. It swells. The Justice League failed. And here's Flash phasing out and, running back in time with the Speed Force and just the words as he's saying, Dad, if anything happens, I want you to know, your son was the best of the best, one of the best. Like, oh God, the music swells. And it's such a beautiful moment. In my opinion, again, of all the comic book movies I've ever seen, everything that holds. I even have it as a my thumbnail on my Facebook profile. I have it as my wallpaper here on my computers. It is the most iconic comic book scene ever because I didn't expect it to happen. No one expected that scene to happen.
Yeah.
And just the way it was shot, the music, everything, it's so beautiful. So that's my most iconic moment in all comic book movies whatsoever.
Yeah, it is an amazing scene. Now you got me thinking. Like even when Barry is talking to himself when he gets hurt and he has to heal, and he's just like, "Come on, Barry, you know, you
Yeah.
got this. You can do this." So it's yeah,
It's
that's an
so
amazing scene.
it's so amazing, man. So okay, so here we go. So we got down to the final two questions, and then we can go ahead and you said you had some questions for me that we can touch on real quick. But here you
Yeah.
go, Al. So what makes the MCU superior overall?
I think I think a couple of things. So I think the MCU's cohesion
Hmm.
makes it superior just across all the movies. It feels like a real Marvel comic book experience. It doesn't feel disjointed. And I like kind of the layers to it. So you, as I said before, you do have the kind of the street level, the earthbound, for the lack of a better word, heroes. So you have that kind of story, which I feel like those stories are more grounded, but then it does expand and it becomes galactic in its scope, and now it multi-universal in its scope. So I like that aspect of it because it feels like I can go granular if I want to,
Hmm.
or I can go Guardians of the Galaxy and get bigger.
Yeah.
So so I like kind of that range with how they tell the stories. I like the levity in it, and I know this is a point of disagreement with some, but I like the fact that you have kind of these tense moments, but that you also have the jokes that are implemented. I feel like it's a nice balance, and so I like that aspect of it as well. But one of the things I really like about the MCU really comes pre MCU, and that is what Stan Lee and some of the others did in creating the characters. And I remember Stan saying in an interview that one of the things they tried to do was they tried to make characters that are relatable, and just through some of the small things like putting them in New York or Los Angeles. They weren't kind of fictitious places.
Hmm.
So, and Stan said that we did that so that people could identify, or we did that so that when you were turning the pages and you saw this building or that building, you're like, oh man, I know where that is, or I live close to there, or
Yeah.
what have you. So I that's one of the things that I like about Marvel, and I feel like they've expanded that to to the MCU now. So I think that those things make the whole of the MCU more superior, because it all seems congruent. It all seems like it flows from like I said, from smaller tiers all the way to galactic.
Hmm.
And that's what I love about it. I think that structure is really what makes it stand out and makes it superior.
All right, that's good, and I would agree with you in a sense. For me here, this is the final question. Then we'll go to the comments and those questions you had out. But for me, what makes the DCU superior? And again, I'm including all films since Keaton is now in the Flash movie. What makes the DC films superior, in my opinion, is that they're groundbreaking. And when the Warner Brothers executives aren't messing things up and they allow filmmakers to actually make a film, these films, in my opinion, can be classified as timeless. I mean, let's kind of go down and name some directors. We have Donner, Burton, Nolan, Snyder, Gunn, Jenkins, Wan, and Reeves. These are directors that are like, in a sense, in our community, household names. And
Yeah.
when they allow these people to make a film, these films are highly critically acclaimed and templates for other franchises. Kevin Feige has said plenty of times, for if Donner, they everybody before they make a Marvel film, Kevin Feige says he has a group and everybody watch Superman, which is the perfect superhero film, from origin story, from 3 acts, everything. They all watch it, and that makes sense. And of course, I think Marvel's maybe perfected that formula with their films, but the DC films are always some we consider timeless, but they're also risky, and they always deal with heavy emotional human decisions. As you just touched on, Superman making a choice. He's combating his Kryptonian side and his human side, whether he should save Lois. There's decisions like with Batman's arc with the Justice League, with him hating the gods that have arrived and destroyed, a city, and all his friends died, and Batman had an arc and discovers faith at the end of the Justice League. They're just real human stories. The cinematography stands out. You can freeze frame any shot within the Justice League Zack Snyder cut, and it's beautiful to watch. The scores, the scores in all DC films are superior to Marvel, in my opinion, because they have Oscar nominated direct composers like John Williams, of course, and then you have Hans Zimmer. Everybody knows the Superman, the Batman, Keaton, whatever. Everybody has the scores in their head. I have some of them in my workout mix. Wonder Woman's iconic. You hear it, you know who it goes to. You hear the Batman theme, you know what it goes to. Man of Steel, you know all that. I don't know how the theme sounds for Captain Marvel. I don't know how it sounds for Doctor Strange or Ant-Man. I don't know what their themes are. I don't know. You can play them right now, and I would guess wrong. But as far as films, from a directing standpoint, score and storytelling, some of the iconic films, they're just timeless in my opinion. And they, again, I think there's a couple DC films that have been nominated for Best Picture, Joker being the last one. That's what I love about them. They're grounded films made by filmmakers. I feel like I'm watching somebody's vision. When I watch Batman, I know I'm watching a Tim Burton adaptation of what he thought Batman should look like. Nolan bringing the reality and grounding a fictional character into our world. I don't think anybody had ever done that before. So I just love when the directors are given freedom to make a film. James Gunn, what he did with again the Suicide Squad, I loved it. I wasn't kind of partial to it at first, but after rewatching it, I love what he did. I love how he takes characters that are just no one knows and makes them household names. So that's what I love about the DCU is that they're groundbreaking, they're historic, and they're well casted. The score, they're films made by filmmakers. Is what I love about them. And that's all I got to say about that. But yeah, you said you had some questions, Al, on like now that we're done with questions. Go ahead.
So this is a question really about the DCU and the MCU. Some of you may be familiar with Coppola's I can never say his name. You know who I'm talking about, Francis. His recent statements about comic book movies, and some of the greats have made statements as well. I think Scorsese said something negative about it too. And I think the statement was close to, they don't really feel like those films are art. So I'm just curious to know what you think about that.
I disagree.
Okay.
I know what Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola, right? I didn't.
Right.
I love his films. I love everything he's done, especially The Godfather. But I disagree. They are arts. Maybe pop culture art, but they are relevant. I think where they're coming from is that they're maybe upset how traditional films like The Irishman, films that they've made in the past, there's no market for them anymore.
Mhm.
The films that people will risk COVID to go see are Spider-Man films. You know, that made no movies. Everyone was questioning why aren't people going to the theaters anymore? I don't know. Then Spider-Man comes out and it made $2 billion. You know, they'll go to the theater for Spider-Man. So the marketplace for films is gone. I mean, any rom-com, maybe they'll go directly to streaming, but now comic book films, whether good or bad, have taken those films out of the equation. And I think Martin Scorsese had to pay for the Irishman to get funded. Francis Ford Coppola spending $150 million of his own money
Yeah.
to make these films because no studio is going to fund it because they know there's no profit in any original tales now. They know the money's in superhero films or sequels or reboots, which is it is detrimental, I think, because we both grew up. I was watching Unforgiven the other night. I loved it, and I'm like, wow, what, are we ever going to get a major Hollywood film like this ever again? Probably not, because there's no risk. So I disagree with as far as the art form. I kind of agree on the consequences it's had in the marketplace and them not being able to make films like they used to anymore.
Yeah. So I just want to get your take on that. It's interesting to hear them make those comments, and I think for sure they made some really good movies. And I mean, just from every aspect, the storytelling, the cinematically, the writing, the whole nine yards. But I feel like to some extent we're in a bit of an evolution. Um, good boy.
Oh,
Right. It's my wife coming by. She's walking behind the green screen.
hello.
So, but I feel like really we're almost in an evolution of cinematic storytelling, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I kind of feel like those guys are looking at what film should be from kind of a singular vantage point. And I want to be careful here not to misrepresent what they're saying,
Okay.
but um, I just feel like we've evolved in a lot of ways, and cinematically, and even in terms of how we write. Um, and I just think what audiences enjoy is different. And I
Yeah,
think it's really hard to say that something's not art and something is art because it's so subjective.
it is.
Um,
Mhm.
so I wonder what your take is on what your take was on that. So
Well, let me get to the super chat real quick.
okay,
Vince, thank you so much for the $5. I really do appreciate that, man. Al, love your channel, bro. Keep up the great content. Rudy, this is my first
thanks,
time on
man.
your channel. Love your shirt. Hey, and I agree. So I'm subscribing. Hey, awesome. There's a link on my on the video where you can get one if you like. But thank you so much. Thank you for joining. I will say this. I do love filmmaking like Guillermo del Toro. I love him. He's one of my favorite directors.
Yeah,
And the girlfriend and I in December went to go see Nightmare Alley. Anything he does, I'm gonna go see.
how was that?
I loved it.
I got to check it out.
It just, you walk in, you know you're seeing, because he has obviously showcased his love for classic Hollywood. You know, he did that in The Shape of Water. He did that in Hellboy to an extent.
Yeah.
But this one was beautiful. And here I am watching this film. The score is amazing. The casting's amazing. The set design is so beautifully. You feel like you're watching a Hollywood movie. And you look at the theater and it's only me and her watching it. And it flopped. And I think that's I don't think comic book movies are at fault here. I think it's the audience, but it's kind of breaks my heart when I see a film just made beautifully that's actually nominated for Best Picture to not get received or in the public anymore like that anymore. People don't go see films like that anymore. They want to go see like sequels, reboots, and
Right.
comic book movies, and that's just the thing now. You know, good or bad, that's just the marketplace right now.
Yeah, and it's that's an interesting thing to note too, because I feel like to some extent when you are in the film industry, I think things have changed. I think that we did have an era where kind of filmmaking was a certain thing, but now I feel like if you're going to survive, you almost have to play to your public to an extent. It's very difficult to just make a movie and say I'm going to make this movie and not consider the outcomes of it in terms of who will see it, in terms of even the money that it might make. Oh, there's General. That's an OG Dark Side. I'm sorry, he popped on in the comments. General
Grievous.
uh VV down there at the bottom.
Oh, this guy.
Sorry. Yeah. Hey, General.
How's it going?
um, but no, so I think that's fascinating, just from the sense from folks like you and I and folks in the audience that just love the movie making process and movies in general, just to kind of see the evolution of what it means to make a film, and a successful film. And I
Yes.
say successful in the sense that one, the people will watch, not
Mhm.
that it, because it could be great even if no one saw it. So
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly. And I think we're living in a very fortunate era where it's just before the only outlet to showcase your artwork was your films was obviously in the theaters. But now with streaming on demand services, there's so many like shows nowadays, like anything Mike Flanagan makes, he does the Midnight Mass.
yeah.
That's an amazing show. And I love what he does. I think the line between film and show is kind of getting blurred now. HBO had a series called Chernobyl, I think last year, which I loved. It
I
was
saw Chernobyl. That was good.
I loved it everything was just tip top. So I think there's a blurred between the two, I guess, mediums now. And it doesn't just have to be a film anymore. You can make a show, and there's plenty of other avenues to see a film or distribute a film. But for the time being, it's comic book movies. I mean, if you want to make $1 billion, you just go and cast Spider-Man and put a Spider-Man movie out there, and it's gonna make money and tenfold back.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. Sorry, my wife's talking to me. All
Okay.
right. No, but you know what's interesting too? I think I feel like when you hear folks like Scorsese and Coppola talk about films like this, I did my personal thought is people don't have enough appreciation for how difficult it is to make a good superhero movie.
Good point.
Um,
Yeah.
where you're talking about a movie where you have these extraordinary beats, but at the same time you want to balance it with them being grounded. You want them to come across as accessible to the audience, and I feel like now their filmmakers are really trying to do a lot more work with that. Now, this is an example of this. It's not necessarily a film; it's a TV show, but that's one of the reasons why I love Superman and Lois. Like
Mhm.
I gotta finish editing that review. Sorry, it just came in my head, but because I feel like that Superman is so accessible. He's like he could be you, he could be me,
Mhm.
and I love how they tackle. And I've said this before, these very human problems that no degree of superpower is going to get you by.
Exactly.
You know, you have to interact with your son that has some mental and emotional needs. You
Mhm.
have to interact with your wife in a way that's going to be constructive. You all of these different things. So the way that they balance that is just so amazing on the show. And one of the things I really love about that show is it doesn't matter whether I'm seeing Clark or Superman, I enjoy them both mutually
Yes.
because it's just so well done. So I say all that to say, again, balancing kind of that human aspect with the superhero aspect and resisting just giving us the spectacle because nobody's going for that now. Like in 2022, we need a story. We need a good story.
Mhm. Story is what matters. As far as I know Batman's coming out next week. I'm gonna buy my tickets. I haven't done it yet.
I've already got them.
Oh, for Thursday, or there's a Tuesday showing as well. Which one did you get?
For us, the first one's on Thursday.
Okay.
So I'm so mad at some of our friends who got, and I'm working this myself, who got screeners who've already seen it, but they just can't say anything. So some of our
Oh,
friends have already seen it.
yeah, I
So
saw them boasting on Twitter. I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
shut up. I'm
So,
just gonna hate over here, just whatever. But I'm looking forward to that. Again, Matt Reeves. In another all timeline, I wanted the Ben Affleck movie because Ben Affleck, I think, is an Oscar-winning director for
yeah,
Argo. I mean, the guy can direct. He knows what
yeah,
he's doing. Whether you like Batfleck or not, the guy can make a damn movie. And
yeah.
I'm really upset that we never got that opportunity because I know we would have got something special. But Matt Reeves, I know he's been wanting to make this particular film. When I heard Robert Pattinson was casted, I was excited because I knew we
Mhm.
were going to get a film that was going to be mature and dark, and I cannot wait for that. What are your thoughts on that? Are you looking forward to that? What are you kind of expecting?
I'm really looking forward to it because I want to see what we get here, and I can't help but already in my mind compared to the work that Nolan and some of the others have done.
Yeah.
Even though I feel like this is going to be a different film, I feel like this is going to probably be more along the lines of what we saw with Joker. Maybe not the same story, but
Mhm,
just kind of structurally, maybe.
mhm.
So I'm really looking forward to that. But for me, I, I'm looking forward to it just off of what he did with Planet of the Apes. So
Yes.
um, just
Yes.
off of that has me excited to see what he would do with the superhero property. And I also like that it feels like, or visually anyway, it looks like a noir film. So I hope that
Yes.
tone is consistent throughout. Um, and I I'm a little bit concerned about, I guess, about how we get Batman. Like, will because I'm with you on this one. Like, I want to see a high level of aggression.
Mhm.
And I think we're going, what, PG-13, I think is
Yeah, I
what
was
we're going.
disappointed it wasn't R, but it's PG-13.
So, um, but I mean, listen, man, some PG-13 stuff is like, wow, like
Yeah.
yeah, you know. So, but I'm really, really looking forward to it. So I hope it comes across well. And I'm a little bit bummed in the sense that, from what I understand, this is again another standalone, so we may not see this in the DCEU.
Mhm.
So, that does bum me out a little bit. But I can't wait. Yeah, I got my tickets like a month ago. So
Smart man. Smart
yeah.
man. I gotta get him tonight. As far as like this year, I know that's coming out. I know Black Adam's finally coming out. The Rock. I just realized that the DCU has John Cena and The Rock in their universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
For good or
Yeah.
bad, we have both. But I'm interested to see. I saw, like, of course, not what's his name? God, I forgot his name. Nova, I believe is his name. Who's Pierce Brosnan cast as?
Oh, Dr. Fate.
Dr. Fate. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I totally went blank there. And Hawkman.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Before I was excited. Now I'm just curious to see what they do because I hope The Rock actually acts in this. It's not just The Rock in a Black Adam outfit because I want him to act. But
Yeah. Yeah.
curious what's going to happen. Of course, Shazam's coming out, so I'm excited for Batman and the Flash. I'm not even want to talk about that right now, but especially if it's going to erase everything that I love, I'm going to be very bitter about that.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious what's going to happen with the DCU. What's Marvel got on tap this year?
So I know we've got Multiverse of Madness. We've got Love and Thunder.
Yes.
And there's two more I'm forgetting about. I always want to take Universal stuff and make it Marvel, but it's not, like, like Morbius and some of the other stuff I think we have coming. I'm missing something though. I know we have those two, but I feel like there's something else I'm missing. Um, oh, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Um,
Really?
we
There
have,
was
yeah,
one?
Quantum Mania. Um,
Uh,
I think those are the three. I don't if I'm missing something, somebody in the comments fill me in if I'm missing, because I think those are the three majors though. And
I'm
I'm not including stuff that we've got on tap for, like, Disney Plus, like Moon Knight, which I am very excited about. But so I
we
think those
got
are
yeah, Love and Thunder, Wakanda Forever,
right.
the Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness. We have Morbius, and then we have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, and the Flash and Black Adam. So there's quite a few, and Aquaman's coming out, The Lost Kingdom later this year. So there's a ton coming out.
Is Ant-Man coming out this year? Was I wrong?
I don't see it here on the list.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't. So no, it's not Buzz Lightyear. Nope, it's not coming out.
Okay.
Uh, we're about you good on timeout? We'll just wrap up this last question, then we're good.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Vince, thank you so much for the super chat. I really do appreciate it, sir. Guys, top 5 superhero movies and why, please. So you go first. God, I
This is such a hard question, man.
know, I
Oh
know.
boy. Well, I'll let you go first, Rudy.
Oh God. Okay. Well, wow. You know what? I'm just gonna name my favorite and just go on down. Okay. My favorite is Superman. That's why I have it up there with Christopher Reeves. That's my childhood right there personified. Second, I'm gonna go Zack Snyder's Justice League because it was everything I wanted from an emotional storytelling standpoint. 3, I'm gonna go Logan. I love Logan. Logan is a masterpiece. I
Yeah.
love it. I don't want Hugh Jackman to come back or Professor Xavier. That was perfect. Leave it alone. Just
Yeah.
recast it or something. Oh God. The next one is going to be The Dark Knight. Of course, there's 4, and then 5. I'd have to say Infinity War. I know I'm skipping some. I know I am. But I say Infinity War. I love that was from my opinion, one of the movies that go, wow, Marvel's got some balls to kill everybody and end the film like that with no post credit scene. I remember in the theater, I was like, that's right, kids. You know, I was so like happy when it happened. Oh God, but those are my 5 for right now. I know I'm missing some. I know I am, but those are the 5 that I could just name off the top of my head.
All right, Vince. So let me say this that this is subject to change. So if you hear me on a future video answer this question and it's different, don't say I didn't say so.
Yeah,
So because it's such a hard question,
it
man.
is.
Because you start thinking about your top 5, and then you think about others, and you're like, oh wait. So okay, but I'm gonna go with me for number 1 is probably Winter Soldier. I loved Winter Soldier. I just think everything about that was so good. The construction of the story was so good. I loved it.
Mhm.
Um, the my second would probably be Donner's Superman. I what Reeves did with that role is absolutely amazing. Even though I'll throw in a caveat that might get me in trouble. I think at this point, I did say this to Rudy too. I think at this point that Tyler Hoechlin from Superman and Lois is the best Superman we've ever seen. So there, I said that. All right. Um, so number 3. Oh, geez, man.
I know.
Um, I probably for number 3, I probably go with Infinity War.
Mhm.
Um, I just the scope and scale of that is absolutely it's just
Amazing.
it's
Mind-blowing.
amazing, man. It's
Yeah.
amazing. 4, I would go with Snyder's cut for Justice League. Um, in 5, man, this is so tough, man.
I know.
Um, I'm mad at you, Vince, for asking this question, buddy. Um, I probably would go with um Civil War, maybe for 5.
That's a good one. That's a
Yeah,
good one. I remember leaving the theater like, "Oh, this is getting kinda dark here." I catch the darker the better for me.
yeah,
But that's really good. You give the list, you answer, then you think, "Oh, I should have
yeah,
done this."
yeah.
One that's underappreciated that I saw recently again it's a DC film, I didn't know that, is Constantine. It's really good.
Constantine is good. Yeah,
It's wow, I'm like, "This is good. Why are we bringing back Keanu Reeves and putting him in the DCU?" I mean, imagine Justice League Dark, but with Keanu Reeves.
yeah.
Ah!
And I love that dude, man. Like I love Keanu and so much that I see. And part of it is I'm partial to the fact that I hear he's such an amazing person too.
Yeah,
So, but I do think even performance wise, he's great. Like in John Wick and especially John Wick. John Wick's the best, in my opinion, the best action franchise that I've ever seen.
yes.
Um, so it's not the best movie franchise. Best movie franchise to me is Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
But
yeah, absolutely. I can't
so
wait for the Amazon series to come out.
that was good too, Rocky, though. V for Vendetta was really good too. That was really good too.
And I have the poster in my living room, and I totally forgot for V for Vendetta, and it's actually a DC property as well. And it's scary. I saw it last year, and I was like, "Oh, this is too close to reality now." It's like, "Oh God, it's like It's really good.
So I want to if I can I'll wrap up with this, Rudy, because I want
Okay,
to ask you this.
go ahead.
So and then I'll answer this as well. But what about your favorite superhero shows? Top 5.
Oh God, 5? Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna say number 1 is Doom Patrol. Season 1 and 2 are the best ever. 3 was okay, but Doom Patrol was my favorite number 1 all time. I was had no expectations, and I was completely shocked how deep and well written it was, taking just these characters, these misfits, and just making them so human. I mean, this guy's in a robot suit, but you can relate to Brendan Fraser, man. So it's awesome. Daredevil, definitely. I love Daredevil.
Yeah.
That's so good. I wish I want more Daredevil, more content like that. 3, I'd have to say Peacemaker because it totally blew me away. 4, I'm gonna say Smallville because it owned me. It probably has the best opening theme ever. It's on my
Yep.
workout soundtrack.
I can still hear that. I can still hear it. Yeah.
Smallville, definitely. And 5, oh my god, 5. I have to. Woo, I can't name one right now. I can't think of it. I never saw Arrow. Flash season 1 and 2 were great. Then it just went to shit. Uh, I can't think of another one. I have to say maybe Superman and Lois. I'm watching that right now. I just finished season 1, and I know season 2 just started with Bizarro, right? Bizarro
Yeah.
Superman.
Season 2 we just picked up yesterday. Episode 5 dropped for
Yeah,
season 2.
and it's Bizarro. I've never seen such a cool looking Bizarro before. So like, maybe that one. I may change my mind on number 5, but those are the definitely 1 through 4. I can't change that. But yeah, maybe the Batman animated series. I'd say it was 5. If I'm
Yeah,
gonna go
Vitas
shows,
is yeah. I didn't think about that. So
yeah.
many, man. It's so hard. So hard.
No, we're so lucky.
So yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
You?
I think for number 1, I know people are probably gonna be like, really, Al? But I think for number 1, still at this point, will probably be WandaVision.
I haven't seen it.
Um, and you haven't seen it?
I have not.
You haven't seen it? And I loved WandaVision because I loved 2 things about WandaVision that I love. I love the exploration of her grief, and I love the fact that we got a proper Scarlet Witch, because what you see in the MCU is nowhere close to
Exactly.
what she's like in the comics.
Mhm,
And WandaVision they start us down that track with really seeing how powerful she is.
mhm.
So that'll probably be my number 1. Man, this is so tough. I'm going. I gotta give Superman and Lois number 2, man.
Wow.
I
Okay.
gotta give Superman. I'm completely blown away by how well balanced and emotionally not charged, that's not the word I want, but I guess emotionally grounded and accessible this show is. I love that show, man. And
Mhm,
I was surprised because I slept on it. Some of the Dark Siders were saying, man, you got to watch it. Didn't I slept on first season? Because I was like, I don't think so. It's on the CW too. I'll
mhm.
pass.
It doesn't feel like a
Um,
CW show.
so no, it doesn't. It doesn't. So I love that. So I got to bring that in as number 2. It's interesting of the stuff that's on um that was on Netflix. I think my number 3 probably shoot. I was gonna say my number 3 probably would be Luke Cage, but I feel like it's a toss between Luke Cage and the Punisher because I love the Punisher. Oh my gosh, Bernthal was so good in that.
Mhm.
Um,
Luke Cage had some of the best soundtrack. I remember playing the season 1 soundtrack on my phone for like repeat for like the whole year. That was so good.
yeah, yeah. Luke Cage was really good. Michael Coulter was great in that.
Mhm.
Number 4 probably would be Umbrella Academy. I really enjoyed Umbrella. Did you see Umbrella Academy?
My daughter did, but I never did. I never saw
Okay.
it. Mhm.
So I really enjoyed Umbrella Academy. Um and number 5, I'm probably going to say, because it was such a surprise, which is interesting to me, and this might be right down your alley, Rudy, because I don't normally watch stuff that's that graphic, but it's probably um was Unbreakable. Not Unbreakable. Is it Unbreakable?
Show?
Not Shyamalan's movie. Somebody help me in the comments. I'm getting it wrong. It was on it's on Amazon Prime. It might be Unbreakable.
Oh, The Boys. I forgot about The
The
Boys. That's good.
The Boys was good too, but this is
Oh,
not what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the animated somebody will put it in the comments. With and
J.K. Simmons is the voice.
J.K. Simmons is the
Omni
father.
Man, right? Omni Man?
He's Omni Man, but what's the name of that show?
Let me look it up.
Jeez.
Let's see here.
Are you're looking it up?
Yeah,
Okay. Invincible. There it is.
there
Vince
you go.
got it.
Invincible.
Invincible. Yeah. Because Invincible, man, what I love about that is number one, I have no familiarity with the source material, so I have no idea what's coming. And man, oh man, if that's it, yeah, that's it.
Uh
If they like you just don't know. So it's very good,
Yeah,
very
I hear
very
it's incredibly violent, and I've seen the clips of Omni Man just like killing everybody in that Justice League or something. I don't know what's going on, but it looks great. And the boys, someone mentioned Amazon. The boys, I love.
Yeah, the boys was good too. I mean, the boy, and the interesting thing about the boys is you totally know how if folks had superpowers, you know, it would be like that. You know, good and well. You know, we certainly would not get the Superman that's kind of above it all in terms of, I mean, you know, morally, man, you know, people being, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
that's what I loved about the boys too. So
yeah, that one is like definitely rated R. And I looked at some of the comics, and it is worse.
yeah,
The comics, like what they actually draw.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's what I heard. I heard the comics are like way worse.
Yeah, and I kind of read the ending. I don't want to spoil it, but just how it ends and who defeats what's his name? God, Captain America. Uh,
Omni Man.
no, this he's got the American flag for a
Oh,
cape. Um,
Homelander.
Homelander. Yeah. Oh God,
Yeah,
it's pretty brutal how
yeah.
that all ends.
I
But
think I did read that. I think I
oh
did.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
fight at
yeah,
the White House. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
yeah. So
um, but real quick, before we wrap up, final thoughts on you mentioned earlier, you touched on Moon Knight.
yes.
Like, what are your thoughts? I honestly, I didn't read the comics. That I remember, I read a couple because I had the West Coast Avengers as a kid, and I
Mhm.
remember he was part of them.
He
And
was, yeah,
I liked his sword,
yeah.
but that's all I remember. So, like, what are your thoughts? Like, what are you expecting with Moon Knight?
So I'm expecting a really good story, and it'll be interesting to see how they tackle it because I don't know if you know or not, but Mark Spector has multiple personality disorders, so he goes through, you know, he goes through all of these different personalities. So I'm hoping that they really dig into that story. I'm hoping that we get the version of Moon Knight that gets some of his powers from Khonshu, the Moon God. It depends on how they write him. I think when they rebooted him, they took that away from him, which
Yeah.
made him less interesting. So, but it looks like based on the trailers, we are going to get the version of Moon Knight that does still have some of the powers that he gets that are accentuated by the cycles of the moon.
Hmm.
So, and I'm hoping actually for a darker and a grittier story. To what extent, I don't know, but it'll be interesting. So I'm hoping that you will somehow really be able to check that out because I think that you'll appreciate it. I don't know how it's going to come across, but in terms of what you said you like,
Yeah.
um, I think that you would enjoy it. Plus, I'd be interested to see how they develop Moon Knight and if they do try and differentiate him from Batman. He is based off of Batman, but they're pretty different characters though.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Okay. I Oscar Isaac, he's an amazing actor. He's going to
yeah,
actually be Solid Snake for my Metal Gear. I hope it's a show, but I want a Metal Gear movie or show to come up. But he's going to be Solid Snake. So anything he does, and if he signs on to it, I'm down.
yeah.
I'm down. And real quick, I just want to show everybody this is my favorite comic book of all time. So if you ever were curious what novel has impacted me the most, it's Kingdom Come. This is the one that I read once a year. It's just so awesome. So before we wrap up, Al, do you want to tell everybody what you're working on and what they can expect on your channel?
Yes. So I'm working on the edit for Lois and Superman, Superman and Lois, the fifth episode. I may start covering Bel Air. Everybody talks about how good Bel Air is. I've not seen a single
Oh, I've heard
episode of
about
it.
that. You need
So
to
yeah,
sign up for Peacock for that, though, right? To see it.
I think we have it though. I think we have like one of those bundle packages with everything. But I heard it's really good because it tells the opposite side of what happened with Will before he got to Bel Air. That whole
Oh,
story about what happened to get him to Bel Air. So we might start covering that. And I am going to go live on Sunday, so everybody can yell at me about my thoughts about Rings of Power. So
oh, that
there you
premieres
go.
this weekend.
No, no, no. It doesn't. It doesn't air until 8 months from now. But a lot of people making a lot of videos about it because Tolkien fans are really upset. And I'm starting to get worried about it myself now that I read more.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining the chat and joining our discussion. with DC versus MCU. Again, if the intention wasn't to try to convince you to like a franchise, or if you don't like it, or if you like it, that's fine. It's just we have two passionate people here who love we love these films, and I just want to have a discussion with a good friend of mine to just talk it out. And I'm glad for joining everybody who joined. And Al, thank you so much for joining the chats.
Yes. Yeah, man. I thank you for inviting me. It was a lot of fun, man. Thank you for the folks in the chat for hanging out, man. You guys were awesome as well. So, and we gotta do it again.
Absolutely. Good night, everybody.
See everyone.